In the middle of the Sahara, there's a stone circle older than Stonehenge. Almost nobody has heard of it, and it might be the oldest astronomical calendar ever built. This is Nabta Playa in southern Egypt, near the border with Sudan. Today it sits in one of the driest, most lifeless parts of the Sahara. But 6,000 years ago, this place looked nothing like a desert at all. Between roughly 10,000 and 6,000 years ago, the Sahara wasn't a desert. It was a savanna with seasonal lakes, grassland, and enough rainfall to support cattle herds and small human communities. Scientists call this period the African humid period. People moved into this fertile region and built a life around cattle herding. Unlike the farming societies rising along the Nile at the same time, the people of Nabta Playa were pastoralists. They followed their herds, tracked the rains, and built a culture almost entirely centered on cattle. At the heart of their territory was a seasonal lake, a playa, that filled during the rainy months and dried out for the rest of the year. That rhythm of wet and dry seasons shaped everything about how they lived, and eventually, what they built. Archaeologists believe cattle weren't just food to these people. Cattle burials found at the site, animals deliberately buried in stone-lined chambers, suggest cattle held deep religious or ceremonial significance. This was a society built entirely around the sky, the seasons, and the herd. And it's exactly that relationship with the sky that led them to build something remarkable. Sometime around 4800 BC, the people of Nabta Playa arranged a circle of upright stones, each roughly the height of a person, in a precise pattern on the desert floor. For decades, nobody understood what the circle meant. Then, in the late 1990s, astrophysicist Thomas Brown and archaeologist Fred Wendorf studied the alignment of the stones and found something extraordinary. Certain stones align with the position of the sun at the summer solstice, the longest day of the year. Others appear to align with specific stars, possibly including Sirius and stars in the constellation Orion, thousands of years before similar alignments appear anywhere else in the world. If these alignments are intentional, and many researchers believe they are, Nabta Playa may be the oldest known astronomical device built by human hands, older than Stonehenge by roughly 1,000 years, and older than the great stone circles of Britain by even more. For a small community of cattle herders, without writing, without metal tools, to track the solstice with this level of precision is extraordinary. It suggests the timing of the rains and the arrival of the wet season mattered enough to build something permanent to predict it. This wasn't just a monument. It may have been a working tool, a calendar carved in stone, built by people whose names we will never know. If stories like this, forgotten places history almost erased, are the kind of thing you want more of, subscribing genuinely helps this channel keep finding them. I post a new one every week. Beyond the main stone circle, archaeologists found dozens of smaller stone structures, tumuli and burial mounds, scattered across the site. Many contain the remains of cattle, deliberately buried with the same care usually reserved for human dead. The people who lived here made pottery, some of the oldest fired pottery found anywhere in Africa, decorated with simple geometric patterns. They also worked stone tools with notable skill, suggesting a settled, organized community, not a passing group. Their lives revolved around a strict seasonal rhythm. During the wet months, the playa filled with water, grass grew, and cattle grazed. During the dry months, water and food became scarce, and survival depended on careful planning. Evidence of deep wells, some of the earliest known in the region, shows how seriously they took water management. This wasn't a society passively waiting for rain. They were actively engineering ways to survive its absence. Religion, timekeeping, water, and cattle were not separate parts of their life. They were all connected, all part of the same effort. predicting and surviving the rhythm of a landscape that could turn from fertile to lethal within a single dry season. For nearly 2,000 years, this system worked. Then, the climate itself turned against them. Around 3000 BC, the African humid period came to an end. Rainfall that had sustained the region for millennia began to decline, gradually at first, then more severely. The seasonal lake at Nabta Playa began to fail. Some years it barely filled at all. Grasslands that had fed cattle herds for generations began to disappear, replaced by the bare sand we see today. This wasn't a sudden catastrophe. It was slow, gradual, the kind of change that's hard to notice year to year, but impossible to reverse over generations. Archaeological evidence shows settlement activity at Nabta Playa declining steadily during this period. Fewer new structures, less pottery, fewer signs of permanent habitation. Little by little, the people who built one of the world's oldest astronomical monuments were forced to leave the very land that had inspired it. So where did they go? Most researchers believe the cattle-herding peoples of the Sahara didn't vanish. They migrated, moving gradually eastward toward the one reliable water source left in the region, the Nile. This migration coincides with a critical period in history, the formative centuries just before the rise of ancient Egyptian civilization along the Nile. Some archaeologists argue that the cattle cults, solar alignment practices, and organizational skills developed at Nabta Playa may have directly influenced early Egyptian religion and astronomy, including Egypt's own deep reverence for cattle and the sun. If that's true, then this forgotten desert monument may be one of the hidden roots of one of history's most famous civilizations, a connection almost nobody knows about. But the people themselves, the ones who cut and placed these stones, left no writing, no names, no records of their own. Only the stones remain. Nabta Playa remained unknown to the outside world until the 1970s, when archaeologist Fred Wendorf and his team rediscovered the site during survey work in the Egyptian desert. It took decades more before the astronomical significance of the stone circle was even recognized. For most of its existence since being built, this monument sat completely forgotten, buried under sand and silence. Today, Nabta Playa remains largely unknown outside of academic circles. No major tourist infrastructure, no global recognition, despite potentially being older and more astronomically sophisticated than Stonehenge itself. A calendar in stone, built by a people history nearly erased, still standing, still aligned, still waiting to be truly understood. This is Nabta Playa, older than Stonehenge, nearly forgotten, a new lost world every week.